Alpine have had all the headlines as of late for all the wrong reasons. The team has a lot of legacy, all based out of the little village of Enstone in Oxfordshire. Big manufacturer backing, yet they continue to frustrate, disappoint, overpromise and underperform. There's also been a bunch of talk around an 11th F1 team entry, most prominently the name Andretti. So I've been thinking, here's why I think Alpine should sell their F1 team to Andretti. Kind of. Let's talk about it. Editor Tommo here, quick interjection. I know Helmut Marko has literally said this same thing like 3 days ago, but he copied my homework, okay? I tweeted this like 2 weeks ago. Helmut, I know you're watching, alright? Stop stealing my ideas. Now, but to be fair, Helmut's suggesting a full sale, which is not what I'm suggesting, so there's a slight difference there. If you're agreeing with Helmut Marko 100%, then I would question myself, you know? Anyway, crack on. Renault purchased the Lotus F1 team ahead of the 2016 season and have since embarked on 7.5 years of mid, to be frank. The purchase got them the Enstone team base, their slot on the F1 grid, and all the personnel at that factory. It was also the same team, base and slot that Renault owned from 2002 to 2010. A period that included Fernando's 2 championship wins and Renault's only 2 championship wins in 2005 and 6. Renault would then go on to rebrand the F1 team to their subsidiary performance car maker Alpine ahead of the 2021 season, even though they still only sell one car. I know Alpine have got some cars in the mix, right? Hurry up and get some more out there, please, alright? That Renault 5 looking thing looks great. I want to buy it. As one of the 4 manufacturers currently active on the grid, Renault based their engine operation in a different location to the F1 team, which is not out of the ordinary. Mercedes have HPP, high performance powertrains. Red Bull have Red Bull powertrains. Now Ferrari is based all under one roof in Maranello, but Renault, their engine division, is based in Viry, which is about 20 kilometers south of Paris. Again, that very facility is not an F1 team base, it is an engineering base. However, if you do wind the clocks back to 1977, Renault's first ever Formula 1 race team was based in Viry. That stint only lasted till 1985, with the highlight being Alain Prost's P2 championship finish in 1983, just 2 points behind Nelson Piquet, and bringing a P2 constructors finish to Renault. There is pedigree, be that historic pedigree, of course, to run an F1 team from Viry. Another important thing to consider with Renault is that they're not just another French car maker. They are 15% owned by the French government. And you can't tell me, right, that the Renault Group in 2023 would choose to have their pinnacle of motorsport, right, their F1 team, based in a little village in England. Now, yes, relocating the team would not be easy. You'd have to hire a lot of new talent, build all new facilities. But if Renault have long-term plans to be this French, super French, allez le bleu team and want to actually be a force in Formula 1, then I think it makes sense. Because not only to that, Luca De Meo, Renault's CEO, recently went on record to, and I quote, envisioned the team of being a French Ferrari. Now, of course, there are many parallels between Ferrari incompetence as of recent and Alpine incompetence as of recent. But funnily enough, that's not what he's trying to communicate. In France, there is still too little passion for Formula 1. The reason is that the French people do not have a symbol to cheer for like Italy has with Ferrari. I asked that question again. Can Renault achieve this goal? That one team that cultivates this deep-set love and support like you get with the Tifosi. Can that be achieved when the team is based in England? No, sure. Imagine Ferrari being based in, I don't know, Spain. If De Meo is serious by these words, a relocation is an essential component of that, surely. You know, to build up that Ferrari connection takes a lot of time, a lot of patience. So if De Meo is serious about this, and this isn't just waffle, and remember, De Meo is the Renault CEO, he is the top of the pile, then this should all but confirm their long-term ambition to be in Formula 1. And again, if they want to be a long-term French Ferrari, how can they do that in Enstone? So am I suggesting this Enstone factory just goes to waste, kind of like the Caterham factory did? And all these personnel and people who have worked at the team for years over the Benetton, Tommo, Lotus years, whatever, and they all just lose their jobs? No, I'm not suggesting that at all. That is where Andretti step in. The Andretti family have been speaking for the longest time of their ambition to be in Formula One. And I think majority of fans, myself included, seem to want this. All right, I want an 11th team at least on the grid. And Andretti would be a fantastic name. It's got so much legacy, both in F1 and in the States, which is a huge market that F1 wants to capture, right? It ticks all the boxes for me, especially now that they've aligned their entry with General Motors and Cadillac. Unfortunately, it seems like all the other teams don't want Andretti to come in. They don't want an 11th team. They don't want to have to spread their, winnings. They're acting selfishly, which is in their best interest. You can't really begrudge them for that. But the one team that has been open to an Andretti entry is Alpine. Now, this is because there is a engine deal in principle agreed that if Andretti do get their entry, and they're aiming for 2025, that Renault will supply them with Renault engines. And that would be their first customer for a long time, since I guess Red Bull dropped the Renault engines, right? When Red Bull used to badge their engines as Tag Heuers. Although even in this case, if this was all to happen, it would probably be badged as a Cadillac engine. This is what Andretti was asked to do and delivered in terms of showing that big manufacturer support that gave a lot more credit to their potential F1 entry. But you know what would give them even more credit? Taking on a facility that already exists and is already operating a fully functional Formula One team. A bit of a frustratingly mid one at that, but still an F1 team. Now, before you say, oh, well, Tommo, no. Andretti are already building a base in Fishers, Indiana, right? Where they will host their F1 operations. And well, yes, that is something in the process, but there's a couple of issues with that. First of all, that base won't be ready till early 2026 at the earliest. That's when they said in 2022. And how often do these things kind of overrun? Will it actually be ready by 2026? Who knows? But also the plan was always for Andretti to have a satellite base within the UK, okay? Kind of like Haas have their design base in Maranello, and then they have a satellite base in Banbury, and they have offices in the States. They're spread over 3 countries. So if Andretti did want to enter for the 2025 season onwards, Fishers was never going to be ready. That was never part of the plan. It was always the plan to have a UK base. Now, Andretti do already have a facility in Banbury. It's actually literally, I would say maybe, if you've got a really strong arm, you could throw a stone between Andretti Formula E and Haas, their UK base. But do I think that facility would suffice for a satellite operation F1 team? I don't know, maybe. However, again, taking on that Enstone facility that already exists, already has personnel, kind of in the same way that Haas, their satellite base, used to be Mauritius. The only difference being is that Alpine don't leave F1, they just move their facility to France, and Andretti take on what already exists. The second issue with Andretti and Fishers specifically is that they've encountered a bit of legal trouble. I didn't actually know this until I started researching this video. So this was reported by IndyStar, and the long of the short appears to be a construction company that was being used to build this new base in Fishers has been dismissed, and now they're suing for kind of unlawful dismissal, contracts, blah, blah, blah. I'll leave some information on screen so you can read it yourself. They're suing for like $11 million, which isn't an insignificant amount of money. And well, it appears that building is halted for now. So again, that early 2026 date is already looking pretty untenable. Who knows when that will restart? It doesn't look like Andretti can rely on that Fishers base being ready anytime soon. So what about the investment? You obviously had Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney, Michael B. Jordan, all part of a wider consortium group that's purchased 24% of the Alpine Formula One team for €200 million. That would value the remaining 76% of shares in the Alpine F1 team, which I believe is owned by the Renault Group. I don't know if there's anyone else involved. I know Genie used to be a bit involved. Those remaining shares would be worth around €600 million, or about $700 million. I'm not suggesting Renault sell their entry. They retain their entry into Formula One. They just sell that facility to Andretti, get a bit more pocket change, but without having to sell shares this time. Invest that into building this stonking, wonderful new Viry facility, even if they have to take 1, maybe even 2 seasons of hurt and minimal car development. At the end of the day, Haas managed to develop something that's half decent with, you know, the design facility in Italy, UK facility, American facility, like it can be done, right? A bit of short-term hurt for the long-term gain of having that fully fledged French team, you know? Maybe some of the staff from Enstone would be keen to move to Viry. I can't imagine many would, and especially if they're not out of a job, Andretti can take that over, then why wouldn't they just stay? I mean, Alain Permain, for example, he was there over multiple owners, be that Benetton or Renault or Lotus or back to Renault. It's not out of the question, you know, it's fairly ordinary for staff to live at a team through multiple changes. The only difference in this case is that the team would still exist. Usually it's the team dissolving and then someone else taking it over. In this case, it's the team moving, but that's staying here. Kind of like when Wimbledon moved to Milton Keynes and then rebranded as MK Dons. Even though the fans hated that, that's essentially the club would still exist, you know. This gets an 11th F1 team on the grid. This further empowers this Andretti Cadillac entry, and it puts Renault Alpine on the path to becoming the French Ferrari. This Reynolds McElhenney Jordan investment, right, that will still remain in the Alpine F1 team. That will move to France with Alpine because, again, that team isn't being sold. It's just the facility, and it's an opportunity for a proper refresh because things have been mad messy at Alpine. Not just as of recent, even since like Cyril left. You've had such a, you know, Bukowski came in, then he left. Obviously, Safnauer has been and gone. Permain was there for years. Laurent Rossi came in and now has moved across. Like, this is just an opportunity, it feels like to me, for a bit of a fresh start. They're kind of in this uncanny valley where they're not met expectations, but they've got this investment now. They've got the potential eyeballs for a welcome to Viry instead of a welcome to Enstone. Make the French people care about this French team, which is super French and bavavoom. You know what I mean? Like Thierry Henry sold the dream. Why not? Plus, we know Alpine are planning on building out their road cars in the coming years, and the US is a big market for that. You know, having this relationship and brokering this deal with Andretti, with General Motors, maybe there's more to be benefited from Alpine's point of view, from the car making point of view. You know, could they, I don't know, sell Alpines through GM dealerships? Maybe. Sure, you can have a non-French leadership team. Okay, that worked for Ferrari with Todd and Braun, but let's at least put the roots down in Viry. To me, this would be a sign of intent from Luca Di Maio. But does it happen? Were there any points that I missed? Is there anything I'm missing in this, right? Whether this will happen or not, I mean, it probably won't, right? It's a bit of a pipe dream, but I just think it's a really sound idea. And I want to know what you guys think. Drop a like if you enjoyed this one. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.